Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and these are my cards for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge. And I showed these picket fence stamps in the haul video that I posted just before this one. And funnily enough, when I did that haul video, I said in the video, I was like, oh, these would look really great. Heat emboss with metallic embossing powders. And I already had the rough idea of these cards in my head, but with other stamps. And then when I actually sat down to make the cards, I was like, well, of course I should use these images because it's perfect. So that's what I did. I have some white cardstock here. This is just Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. And I'm just lining things up in my mini MISTI just to make my life easier. And I am stamping these images with Ink on 3's Juicy Clear Embossing Ink. And then I'm heat embossing them with Avery Elle's Copper Embossing Powder. I originally was going to use the new to me Tonic Nouveau copper powder that I showed again in a recent haul video, but I tried that and it was too pale for the color I was going for. So I went with this Avery Elle because the Avery Elle is a little bit more of a finer detail. You definitely want a fine detail embossing powder if you are going to heat emboss any sort of image like this where there's a lot of little lines, a lot of fine details. You want a finer powder because a regular embossing powder or a thicker embossing powder, one that's like more chunky, you're going to lose all that detail and it's just going to end up very blotchy or just kind of solid looking and you won't see that detail. So I heat embossed all three of these images onto panels of white cardstock. And then while I had my MISTI out and all my heat embossing and everything, I also pulled out a couple scraps of black cardstock and I'm going to heat emboss a couple of sentiments. And these are from some CZ Design stamp sets. And this first one is from the Yes You Can stamp set. And I'm going to ink that up with the same clear embossing ink, but then with both these sentiments, I'm going to use Hero Art's white embossing powder just to make it stand out a little bit more against, the white and the copper of the main images. So stamp the images, coated it with the white embossing powder, and then I'm going to melt those with my heat tool. So the second stamp here is from the CZ Design Hello You stamp set. And both of these I have the coordinating dies for. So after they were heat embossed, I'm going to run these through my little Sidekick machine and die cut both of these with their coordinating wafer dies. And then I'm also going to die cut some black cardstock with the CZ Design HOLLA die that I have used in a few videos now. And side note, if you've missed those videos, this is a slang term. It is a combination of the word hello and the word holler. So it's just a slang way to say hello, basically. It's not a misspelled Spanish word. It's just a slang way to say hello, like holla. So I die cut this one 3 times from the black cardstock, and I am going to stack them together with Gina Connect glue. So just adding thin amounts of that glue and then stacking all 3 layers together just to give it that little extra depth and dimension. And once I have all of those stacked, I can go on and start working on the rest of my card. So did all the sentiments at once, and then I have to stamp the remaining parts of the sentiments. So I'm going to put these panels back into my mini MISTI here, and I'm going to stamp the coordinating sentiments with Simon's Intense Black ink. So for this first one, I'm using more sentiments from that same Yes You Can stamp set. And this is like one of my absolute favorite sentiments, I think. I had to use it, and it was so perfect with these images, and I just love how it says, dreams come true with hard work. And then I'm going to finish off that sentiment with another one from the set on the inside of the card, but I'll get to that in a minute. So then this one says, my hide-a-body friend. That's the one I'll add hello to. Hello, my hide-a-body friend. A lot of people ask me, what was that stamp set with the hide-a-body sentiment? It's this one. I'll have it linked with the supplies with everything else. And then the last one will say, holla, love your guts. I love the CZ Design sentiments. They're quirky, they're punny, they're snarky, somehow full on swears in them. They really appeal to me. Anywho, onto the pattern paper, which funnily enough, my last video I went on about how I like hardly ever use pattern paper and how I'm always just inspired by it. And then I decided to prove myself wrong and actually use a bit of it. This is one of the patterns from the BoBunny Black Tie Affair pack. I really liked this floral. It was just gorgeous. So I pulled that out, and then I pulled out my go-to pattern paper that I do use a lot. It just, in a way, doesn't really apply to my pattern paper obsession. This is like in a category of its own. I've raved about this for so long. This is the MFT black and white stripes that I love, and I have a backup of course. So both those pattern papers I'm adhering directly to my card base with that same Gina K Connect glue. And then I wanted to pull in a bit more of that copper color of the embossing powder. And I didn't really have anything in my stash, shockingly, I know, that went with that color. So to get around that, I just cut some strips of black cardstock, and I am coating that with that same juicy, clear embossing ink. I'm going to coat it with that same embossing powder and melt that with my heat tool, so that I have 3 strips now of the metallic color that's going to perfectly match, obviously, the embossing powder, and it just kind of gives it that little extra something. So all these strips I'd cut to, they were like 6 inches by like around 1/4 inch or so, but I purposely had them longer so I had something to hold on to while I melted all that embossing powder. And then I'm going to adhere those to each of those panels with just a nice thin line of that Connect glue. And I've also got foam tape on the back of all these panels, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Big Mama foam tape roll that I have been using for I don't know how long now, that I still really love. Like, it's a bit of a pain dealing with the release paper on this foam tape sometimes. It just likes to be difficult to remove. But for me, I still love it. I love this foam tape. I think it's worth it. I just like it when I want that little bit of dimension, but not the really thick popped up dimension you get from regular foam tape. So I don't know. And this roll has been like, I make a lot of cards, but this roll has been lasting me forever. Oh, speaking of a lot of cards, that's another thing I've been getting asked a lot lately. What do I do with all the cards I make? Because I do make a lot of cards. I send them to my Patreon supporters. That's something kind of newer. But yes, the cards are piling up. I don't have that many friends. I don't have a big social life, or a big social circle. So yeah, I send cards to my Patreon supporters, and I link to my Patreon. It's linked in the description box below the video, near the bottom of like with all my social media stuff. So anywho, got everything adhered to the front of my cards. I got to finish the insides of my cards, of course. So I am lining up these stamps, and I went through my stash and remembered I had this little ink cube of Delicata copper ink. So I'm going to stamp these girls on the insides with this copper ink, and then stamp the coordinating sentiments that I want on the insides with Simon's Intense Black ink. So this one, like I said, this is one of my favorites. On the outside it says, you know, dreams come true with hard work. And then on the inside it says, and you are the hardest working person I know. Love. 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 Such a good sentiment. So I just went along and stamped each of the girls, the same girl, making sure I was, you know, stamping the right one on the right card. On the inside of each card with that Delicata ink. And then inking up each of the sentiments I chose with the black ink. So this one, that one had said, hello, my hide a body friend. On the inside it said, you're a stellar human. So much fun. And then this one that says like, holla, love your guts. The inside says, I miss your face. Just love it. Love it. As a final bit of embellishment, I pulled out some pretty Pink Posh rose gold jewels here. I've kind of included a picture of how they look just to give you a better idea, because on camera and in my pictures, you really can't grasp how pretty these are. They're basically black crystals with like an overlay painting, like this metallic-y kind of rose gold / coppery paint on them. And they are the prettiest things. Seriously, I just like to sit and, you know, shake them. So I added those to kind of finish off this color scheme, and that's going to finish off my cards. So I will have links, as always, in the description box below the video. I'll have a link to my blog post. I'll have a link to, I'll have my supply list with direct links to everything that I used. In my blog post, I will link to the color throwdown challenge. It's open to everyone. You know, there's me and several others on the design team, and then it's a challenge every week that we post that anyone can participate in, and all the info is on the Color Throwdown blog, which I link to, so you can check that out if you are interested. And thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!